about being told you had to do these, but actually, since we've been using them, and I've used them every single lesson now since February, March time, they've completely simplified my lesson planning process. They are amazingly engaging, and you can use them in a whole variety of ways. And I think Chris is going to start off by telling you about one of my absolute favourites, which is the commonality key.
Okay, so let's have an example. Let's try this together. Next slide. Right, the first one. Commonality key. The idea being you have to find a link between two main images. So, I have myself two images here. Would anybody be able to give me a link between, we all know who that is, and the Wizard of Oz?
Dreamworld.
Dreamworld. Lovely, fantastic. Jane, what have you got?
Something about lack of heart, maybe. A tornado whirling in and knocking things up, stuff like that.
Mine's just ever so slightly better, a little bit camp. So there we go. I started that we both use, both really enjoy, and now we're going to go through examples of the other keys.
And this one's incredibly simple, kind of just is what it says. You ask pupils to predict something, so I've been doing some work with my year 8s on rainforests, and simply just ask them to predict what the Amazon would look like in 50 years' time. Really, really simple, engage them straight away, lots of discussions that can come from that.
Right, so the question key. So usually very formulaic, you ask your students a question, they give you the answer. This key flips it on its head. You start off by saying, and this is the text I've been just finishing off my year 8s, if private peaceful is the answer, what is the question? Now the sloths in the room will say, what's the book we're studying? The higher ability ones want to push themselves will come up with more complex questions to test and quiz one another. So inbuilt differentiation, always a plus.
Alphabet key, one of my absolute favourites, perfect if you are perhaps starting off with some group work, you want to have a bit of competition, or if you need a slightly longer starter. So simply you have the letters of the alphabet, and you give them a topic, a theme, an idea, and ask pupils to come up with words starting with every letter of the alphabet linked to that topic.
And if you tell them that you cannot use the words X-ray or xylophone, they panic.
Yeah, they really wish.
Okay, the what-if key. This one's also really, really great for stimulating some really creative ideas. So for instance, my subject, English, it's a really nice, great one for getting like, the creative juices flowing. You start off with a hypothetical question. So for instance, for anyone who knows the text Coraline, the idea that there's an alternate universe, another world. There is no other Coraline, but I asked my students, what if there was an other Coraline? What would she be like? You then partner this up again. If you want to flesh out this starter, you partner up with the consequences circle. So you put your question in the centre, you come up with 5 immediate consequences, and then the knock-on effect of those consequences. So like I said, that one can really flesh out and develop some really creative ideas, some great revision
it's absolutely brilliant for geography, social, environmental, economic impacts, breaking all those things down, really good for revision of case studies, and also for sort of essay and extended writing. Really gets the people to actually start thinking about planning those answers before they sort of start writing them. And this one here, called the bar key, simply give them a picture. It could be anything, it could be an object. In this case, it was a beach. Just ask them to think of what they would make bigger, what they would add, or what they would replace, and then obviously you can draw out their justifications. This one here, just different uses. Again, incredibly simple. This one here, we've just been doing some work on recycling. So I'll ask people to think of 10 different uses for plastic bottles.
Okay, different uses. This is how I've been using this. I've developed this slightly. So again, going back to Coraline, how could Coraline use these 3 items to help her win the other mother's game? Now again, some kind of inbuilt differentiation here. Your lower ability will kind of go for, they'll pick each item and say, well, the banana skin could do this, the yo-yo could do that, and the bellows could do that. My higher ability synthesise all 3 together, and I got some particularly disturbing and violent scenarios for the other mother from 11-year-olds.
This one here, the picture key, simply you give the pupils a picture. I just wasn't being very creative, I was having some shapes. And literally, I was doing this with my year 8 in the rainforest project, so we ended up with lots of animals that they turned those shapes into, or this was like an area of rainforest that they had cut this side they wanted to protect. You could literally give them anything and ask them to think a bit about how they could link that to the topic that you are particularly looking at that time.
Okay, so one thing that I've been keen to do is to develop these, because obviously these weren't original ideas, but I thought, how can I sort of put my own spin on it? And so I've taken the commonality key, which is kind of like the start, or everyone uses that because it's safe. To say, right, okay, how am I going to develop this? So my developed commonality key is, rather than have 2 images and try and find the links between the 2 images, I get myself a menagerie of images and try and get my pupils to explain how that could link to our topic. Again, how I've done this, I have some very obvious links. the needle and thread, for example, in Coraline, the whole idea is sewing buttons into your eyes. So my lower ability, make that distinct link. I can see the needle and the thread, I know that we're there. The higher ability, there's no mention of, say, a crown or a skull made of flowers or money or the chains in the book. But my higher ability peoples actually try and make those links, those creative links. So again, it's inbuilt differentiation from the world life, and it doesn't take 2 minutes. Okay, so summative then, why use these keys? We found that there's a much, much quicker start to lessons. If there's one whacked up on the board as soon as they go, my kids grab pens, they're going. Particularly when, as I said, they're nice and violent. The pupils are also engaged far quicker as it's become built in drip fed over time. As I said, we're using this across the whole school, so they are getting these keys left, right and centre. And so they become far engaged far quicker. And as I think we've both said here, the responses to the more creative keys can lead to sort of insightful answers, which can then, they anticipate, they lead to a discussion which you hadn't seen coming. You think, okay, great, let's roll with that. And so, right, if you are a fan of the Urban Cookie Collective, you will get that. Thank you very much.